Hello, passengers, and welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License with service to Medford, Texas. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember that if you see an unaccompanied minor on the plane, be careful. They may inadvertently hurt your feelings by questioning your intellect, but don't worry, we have snacks to distract them.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Max Singer. Max, how you doing today?
Oh, I darn tootin' am ready for some hootin' and hollerin' and tarnation here in Texas today, I do say.
Oh my gosh. Well, Max, this week we are going to take a deep dive into, we've never done a sequel before on this podcast. No, all kidding, all jokes aside, we're talking about young Sheldon this week. But before we do so, Max, do you mind telling folks what this podcast is all about?
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes in making us want to watch more, and if we think they can be made today. Go back and stream our old episodes from wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok to see our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
And before we dive too deep into young Sheldon, a quick word from our sponsor.
Hey there, frequent flyers. This week's episode is brought to you by Riverside. Riverside has been the go-to platform for TV Pilot's License when it comes to recording this podcast. You can record crystal clear audio and video all in one place, and when you're done, Riverside makes it super easy to edit your show and put together pre-formatted clips for social media promotion. Not a podcaster? Not a problem. Riverside is fantastic for hosting live streams, creating educational content, putting together marketing materials, interviews, and so much more. So whether you're looking to finally get that podcast idea off the ground or take your show to the next level, Riverside is the platform for you. Get started by clicking the Riverside link in the description of today's episode.
Well, let's dive into young Sheldon, and we're going to start off with a quick synopsis. And this week's synopsis, just in case you're wondering, is coming to us from Netflix. Brilliant yet awkward 9-year-old Sheldon Cooper lands in high school where his smarts leave everyone stumped in this Big Bang Theory spinoff. Just in case your dumb brain doesn't know this is Big Bang Theory, Max, can you tell us
I gotta
how
tell
the
you
show
that
got made?
I saw the description and I clicked out. It was spoiled for me. I found out how young Sheldon was, and I didn't need to watch the episode.
Oh
Everything was ruined by the description. So today we are talking about the pilot episode of Young Sheldon, which originally aired on September 25th, 2017 on CBS, and the show's creators Chuck Lorre and Steve Malero a bit. We're back with our third Chuck Lorre production here at TVPL. Check out past episodes on The Big Bang Theory and Mom for more on the Emmy winner. Stephen Malero cut his teeth writing for numerous Nickelodeon series throughout the 2000s, including The Amanda Show, All That, Drake and Josh, Zoe 101, and iCarly. As a member of Lorre's writing staff for The Big Bang Theory, he eventually became an executive producer and served as showrunner for seasons 6 through 10 of the hit sitcom. Malero is currently also credited as the co-creator and executive producer to Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage, the spin-off to the spin-off we're discussing today. While looking for spin-off opportunities for The Big Bang Theory, young Sheldon is rooted with an idea Jim Parsons had, a native of Spring, Texas himself, outside of Houston. Parsons filmed his 10-year-old nephew and sent the video to Lorre, intrigued by the idea of a young genius as their next project. The idea developed into a show centered around the childhood of Sheldon Cooper, the Emmy-winning role portrayed by Parsons on The Big Bang Theory. In March 2017, CBS ordered the spin-off to series for the 2017-18 network season. A fun casting fact on today's show, Zoe Perry, who portrays Sheldon's mom, Mary Cooper, is the daughter of actress Laurie Metcalf, who played the role of Mary Cooper on The Big Bang Theory. She previously played a younger version of her mother's character on Roseanne as well. Today's pilot is directed by Jon Favreau, an Emmy nominee known for his work as a director with Elf, Iron Man, Chef, The Jungle Book, and mostly Cowboys and Aliens.
So, you want to hear another fun fact about the cast that we're seeing today? Just a tiny one. So Lance Barber, also in the show, playing Sheldon's dad. He also was found as playing Jimmy Speckerman. So he was in a one episode of the show total, and they were like, "Oh, we like you a lot. We're gonna bring you back." Like, supposedly Chuck Lorre was just such a big fan of the one-off episode that he was like, "This is the guy that we have to have try out to be George Sr." And this show, we've talked about this in the past. While this is the true first pilot episode of this show, they did tests of a like mini pilot within an episode where they did flashbacks to Sheldon's life in Medford, Texas.
Interesting.
In the Big Bang Theory. Why I know that is because I researched it, not because I'm a big Bang Theory fan. But Max, let's go back in time, and let's go back in time to the 80s, where back in Medford, Texas, being introduced to Sheldon, questioning aloud, would he have been a train conductor or a ticket taker if he was not the scientist that he is known to be today? And how do you like this we're used to talking about Big Bang Theory as this largely successful, like ridiculously successful multicam show, very similar to the ones that we grew up with. Like, I'm thinking of the Friends, I'm thinking of the Frasers of the world, and, you know, all the way back to like the 70s as well. We're taking it to single cam, though, with voiceover narration. And how do you feel about this new version of this universe?
Having not seen Young Sheldon before, I instantly went, oh, we're doing Wonder Years. Oh, we're doing like John Hughes. Oh, we're doing all of these like 80s nostalgia coming of age stories. Because I know Chuck Lorre from things that we've covered on this podcast, like The Big Bang Theory and Mom and Two and a Half Men.
Yep.
And then the much more like adult version of Chuck Lorre now with like a Kaminsky Method or a Grace and Frankie. And so I was honestly a little caught off guard that we were doing this VO nostalgia memory lane. And I realized really quickly with how they were framing this and setting it up and introducing our world that I do not need to be versed in Big Bang to understand what I am watching and what is happening. And so that came off as a very pleasant surprise to me that I could just watch this show on its own merit, the clean slate, and not feel like I don't know enough about Sheldon to jump in. This is not a Friends and Joey situation where like you have to understand the journey that is continuing here. I thought it was like a refreshing way to start a spinoff.
Yeah, and the thing that I also appreciate about the beginning of this pilot is while, you know, this is called Young Sheldon, and we assume it's in the Big Bang Theory universe, the BBTU. I appreciate that they're not trying to jam in a lot of like, oh, that's why he's like this, you know, like, or him saying Bazinga immediately in the first episode, right? Because that's a very easy trap I think this show could have fallen into, of just being like, all right, how do we get the BBTU fans to really bite in and like fully appreciate this pilot? We need to put every single Big Bang Theory mention or reference we possibly can.
And hypothetically, if you had been living in a fallout shelter or a bunker of sorts for however long Big Bang Theory was on the air, there is a boy named Sheldon. He is rather young, 9 to be specific, and we're going to follow his journey of being this fish out of water in this small Texas town. And you don't need to understand anything beyond that. If you want to know how the Jim Parsons voice came about, we established very quickly that he just adopts a mid-Atlantic accent because it sounds fancier than the way that the rest of his family talks. And then we move past it. Geoff, also, are you familiar with a YouTube channel called The Walk of Life Project?
I'm not.
So, obviously, the opening song in this pilot is Walk of Life by Dire Straits. It absolutely bags. I love that song so much. There is a YouTube channel that I think you'll appreciate called Walk of Life Project, which just takes the ending scenes to famous movies and puts in Dire Straits' Walk of Life
That's
over
insane.
their end and their credits.
And that it sounds almost like it's perfectly built for me, as far as like that is my comedy.
Exactly. Like if you've wanted to watch like Neo at the end of the Matrix, like hang up the telephone and then kind of like fly off, and instead of, you know, whatever hard rock rap they did for 1999, it's
Sure.
Dire Straits. Do 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 do. It's so much fun. Go check out that YouTube if you got a little bit of time.
Well, Max, I want to dive into something that's a little bit unique about this podcast or about this episode of TV for us is we don't do a lot of TV shows that are centered around children being main characters in those shows. And when I say main characters, I think of the five or the top six characters that you normally have that lead a show in this instance. And this is one that heavily relies on Sheldon and his two siblings, and we get introduced to them all at this dinner table. And this might be me looking a little bit too forward into the episode, but what do you think about these performances and these children having to hold their own in a world that might be a little bit friendly for it, but truly in a primetime television half hour?
Oh, they are just lobbing up one-liners to Missy Cooper and letting her slam dunk them home. Reagan Revert, who plays the younger sister, is the sneaky MVP of this pilot.
100%.
They just continue to find this pattern where it's like it's a series of lines, and then she gets the one-liner and the snarky remark and exits the room, and it's so great. I also have to give shout out to Montana Jordan, who plays the older brother Georgie. They all just find an interesting lane to stay in, and all three of our younger actors absolutely crush this pilot. And to go what I would say is 3 for 3 on strong comedic performances, Ian Armitage getting to show off a little bit more humor than he did on Big Little Lies around this time. All three child actors just absolutely crushing this.
Yeah, and I think that one of the other things that I really enjoy about this opening sequence is you believe in this family just by this single dinner scene, right? By seeing them all sitting together, you get this very instantaneous, like, yep, I absolutely think that this is a family that has to deal with Sheldon not wanting to touch everyone's hands. But at that same time, and the great performances by Lance Barber and Zoe Perry is one thing that I really love is this show, if I had to describe it to anyone, just based off of the pilot and the pilot alone, is very sweet. It is very, like, it is just very kind. And there's one line that really touched me, and it was the I don't believe in God, but I believe in Mom. And like, I'm like, yeah, cool. I absolutely am smiling ear to ear. That is the sweetest line that I've ever heard on, a half an hour sitcom. But I mean, Max, we get to see a little bit of a piece of a life of Sheldon, but why is today different? And are you excited to see why it's different?
Well, it's our 9-year-old Wonder Kid's first day of high school, and it's the same day as his older brother's true first day of high school. And yeah, it's a very clear and relatable why is today different. There is high stakes. We know the world we're setting up, that this is going to be it's an 80s high school comedy told through a 9-year-old's eyes. And I have seen a lot of 80s high school comedies. I know those tropes. I know the world. I know the people that he's going to encounter. And to be able to play that through a 9-year-old genius's perspective it's fun, it's easy, it's simple, it sets itself up for a ton of jokes, and like, how is he going to be this fish out of water?
Yeah, I mean, I think that having it set in high school, being able to show that, hey, not only does the family have to deal with Sheldon being different, but seeing Sheldon be a menace almost to society, not purposefully, I like to make sure to note, but just based off of the idea that he is not in a place that is set up for someone like him by any means of the word. And there's a specific scene that I want to point to that I definitely got a lot of laughs out of, which was our introduction to a lot of the staff and the principal of trying to get Sheldon kicked out of the school. The specific line that I have written down is Oral Roberts University is a wonderful school.
They had that really good NCAA tournament run a couple years ago.
Yeah, and if you know anything about us, good basketball means that you are a good school academically.
We'll overlook
as well.
a lot if you can play some hoops.
But I mean, were there any particular scenes in the high school that stood out to you as something that you maybe enjoyed, or something that maybe like gave you an idea of what to look forward to?
Oh man, Sheldon's first homeroom where he just starts calling out people's violations from the handbook for attire and grooming. I felt like I was going to say to myself, oh no, Sheldon, because I just like, you see it, you see the sinking ship in real time of it's over for him. That the next 4 years are going to be brutal. And it happens in the blink of an eye. And I think it's boom, 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 joke, joke, joke getting fired off. And it gives you this perspective also of Sheldon is going to have to go on this journey to like learn to balance these parts of himself. Like he's going to have to round himself. He's going to have to find a way to balance the child genius and the know-it-all with the person who wants to find a way to also blend in. Because my prediction is while he may not acknowledge it right now, there is going to be an element of him that wants to find acceptance and find love. And we're going to have to see how he, juggles these two parts of his personality. But yeah, in that moment, I wanted to hide under my blanket because we've all been there.
Yeah, it is very much watching the car slide down the hill because of all the ice there, and you're just like, all right, cool, where's it going to crash, and how catastrophic is that crash going to be? But one thing, Max, we were texting, and yes, for our audience, we do tend to talk outside of this show, but
we do know who the other one is. This is not a professional obligation.
Yeah, absolutely. We have met, each other's families, and all that fun stuff. But one of the things that you texted me about that I wanted to make sure we talked about was the music that was in this pilot. And I know you're the big music guy of the two of us, but like even I recognize like this was a different animal entirely.
I walked down the aisle at my wedding to a strings arrangement of Higher Love by Steve Winwood. How do you think I felt when that was the song blasting in the car on the way to drop off Sheldon at school? Between that, Dire Straits, which we've already established, and then the football Oklahoma drill sequence to Nothing But a Good Time by Poison, there are 3 absolute bangers on this soundtrack. And again, it's a thing that you could only get away with when you make that switch to single cam. If you are trying to just sell me on a soundtrack, you did it, Chuck. You absolutely did it with this pilot. I am so bought into this world of 80s mainstream rock and roll that we're going to have.
Yeah, especially like one of the things that tells me is, and I want to have this discussion with you as well, is when you hear music like that being in a pilot episode of TV, it does sneakily show how much the network is bought in on the concept of the show itself, right? And it brings a very interesting question that I have for you, which is we've sort of talked about like the nature of, it's a lot different than Big Bang Theory. There's voiceover. There is this single cam. But we've also talked about the idea of sometimes a pilot is shot and it's a succinct, we could just have this story and be done with it. Sometimes it's shot and we're like, oh shit, what's going to happen next? Like you left us on a cliffhanger. How do you feel about how this story was told to us?
I think it leaves some really nice crumbs as to where everyone's arc is going to go. There's a neat little bow on it as a pilot that we can get to, but I also feel like as far as exploring arcs, we established that the dad lost his job as a coach at another high school, coaching football, and so he is coming to Medford with a chip on his shoulder and perhaps some eyes on him as well. Georgie, the older brother, has to find his place in high school as a member of the football team as the older brother of the 9-year-old in high school. And we've established that the mom is maybe just trying to keep this family together. She's trying to keep God and church in this household. She may be trying to cover up some financial woes that not everyone wants to face head on just yet. And, the sister's just trying to get through the day. She's just trying to survive this tornado around her. But I think dropping all those little hints to arcs we're going to see establishes that you want to know more. Like, it's not just young Sheldon. And you mentioned something before we started recording about how you have to drop in the Sheldon of it all for the pilot of Young Sheldon, but you already know that this is not just a show about Young Sheldon.
Mm-hmm.
This is a show about the Cooper family. This is a show about coming of age together. It doesn't just need to be the Sheldon variety hour, which I think is really true, and I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that I like about this pilot so much is you leave it understanding the Cooper family, if anything, and even understanding a little bit more about Medford, Texas than you probably knew going into it. The idea of small town with one kid who's a little bit off and everyone has to circumnavigate life with that kid being around in church, in high school, all of that stuff. That is a lot more interesting to me than saying like, oh, what wacky things does young Sheldon do every single week? Because then I'm just like, all right, Chuck, we know you can do a multicam. Just make it a multicam, please, for the love of God.
Exactly. And we take him out of the home. We put him in school and see how the adults relate to him there. We see how the old lady at church handles Sheldon being Sheldon. We tease his favorite place on earth, Radio Shack. And at some point, we're going to see him find solace there. And as long as we keep coming up with situations where it's like, where can we put this character and how are people going to react to him and what can he get into there? You have infinite fodder. A town has any number of possibilities of places you can put Sheldon. And so to not limit yourself with the three-cornered walls and two sets of a multicam soundstage feels very freeing and it feels very open world. And honestly, it's invigorating to switch up the style so much between shows.
Yeah. So I have one last question for you, Max, before we dive into things we loved. And that is, we've recently been doing a bunch of shows that are an hour and 3-minute long pilots. And this is a swift 24 minutes. I'm curious what you thought about the pacing of this show.
I mean, none of those other hour-long shows had this much 80s rock in them either. There were nearly...
Yeah, that's true.
There were no bang and needle drops either.
There were bagpipes, though, in Outlander, and that fucking rocked.
It would have been weird if Steve Winwood appeared in Outlander. It probably would have thrown the vibe off a bit. I think this is paced incredibly well. I think that we get in, we get out, we set up Sheldon with a conflict and an A-plot. We don't necessarily resolve it within the school, but we resolve it with the home and the family, which I think is more important. This is not about putting a neat little, well, I guess I said this neat little bow, but it's not about solving the issue at school. That's not a one-day situation, but it's about giving Sheldon the acceptance in his household. And I think that there is a little bit of a fake out here in that the conflict that we resolve is how George Sr. views Sheldon and the way that they find solace and commonality at the end of this episode is the true resolution. And the removal of the mitten is not just a silly callback gag, but it's the emotional arc of this episode. And then we get a little joke off of it afterwards regarding the brother. But to see Sheldon and his dad hold hands at grace, to find that common bond, to be father and son, that they are in this together, that's the shift. That's the change in George Sr. That's the change in young Sheldon. I have to call him that. And that's what carries us into episode 2, not fixing how he acts at school.
Yeah, and I have to, you said it wasn't tied in a bow, but I have to call it the metaphorical bow tie.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I wanted to hear from you. What were some, I believe this is your first time watching this pilot, so I'd love to hear what were some things that you loved about this pilot that maybe we didn't talk in depth about.
It is, and to be honest, I thought because it was going to be young Sheldon. That sounds silly and simplistic, but what I thought I was getting and what I got were two very different concepts in my mind. I'm going to say I love watching 13-year-olds do an Oklahoma drill. I like that.
Oh, hell yeah, brother.
This is a show that features football in a way that actually feels like they're playing football. We've seen some bad sports sequences on this podcast, and I didn't feel like this was one. This felt like high school sports. There's a drill that you cannot do anymore in 2026 that you probably couldn't do when this show got made in 2017. There is a little bit of high school bullying amongst the football team, and there's the dynamic of dad versus coach and how George Sr. has to balance that with his son on the team. And I think that young Sheldon gets high school football right in a way that was something I didn't expect.
Yeah, I'm specifically thinking about Robbie Amell throwing a football in the duff is one of the most amazing gifts that I've ever seen, and I love it very, very much. For myself, I sort of spoiled it, but I love how kind this show is, and I know that sounds very, very silly, but sometimes when you sit down to watch something and it's just like, oh, this is just nice. It's not making too much fun of one single in particular person. There's no dark notes that I have to worry about. As much as I love sitting down and watching Law and Order SVU, sometimes it's really nice for there not to be a murder. And then also, I'll just call it out. The writing on this pilot was snappy, and the jokes were really, really tight. To the point where I didn't think there was one that fell flat for me, which is hey, that's a big old win. Now, I'm curious. Wait a minute moments. Do you have any that you want to bring up?
You know what, really, this is the opposite, but really quickly, I have to get one more thing I love because I'm going to forget about it otherwise, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say it. We get Bob Newhart in this.
Yes, we do.
We get Bob Newhart as Professor Proton, the lead teacher of Sheldon's favorite educational program. It is Bob Newhart's last acting credit. He is in 3 episodes of this series. They're his final acting roles. I love that we get this legend in here. I know he had a bit on Big Bang as well, so it's glad to see, but I would be kicking myself if we didn't wrap up this episode with where I didn't get to mention Bob Newhart. I think, if anything, that Sheldon is so stick up his ass.
Yes.
And it's almost... There was a moment where it teetered on, am I going to find him likable? And the emotional arc at the end got me back, but there is a moment where it is almost like, are we going to lean too much into the neuroticism? And I'm glad that they're finding ways to flesh out the family as well, because watching Kid just be neurotic could get a little one note.
Almost the exact opposite of Dennis the Menace, where, in that instance, you have a child trying to be a problem. But in the instance of Sheldon, you have someone thinking that they are the solution and ending up being the problem altogether.
They're trying to do good, and they're falling on their face as a result.
I'm going to cheat a little bit and say, you know what my wait a minute moment is? If you look up everyone who's been in this show, I'm mad that I don't see a lot of these familiar faces, including Wallace Shawn. Annie Potts is a consistent regular on the show as well. And then we get McKenna Grace in one of her first things, which is absolutely insane to see someone grow up via TV. So, yeah. Also, Wendy Malick is in this show and absolutely destroyed. There's just so many great people who are in this show in the future that I'm mad that we didn't get one of them in this pilot, and that pisses me off. Max, we have one more question. We got an in-flight question. This week's in-flight question comes from inside of my own home. Woo! But you can submit them on Instagram. You can also submit those via our phone line. That is 213-290-1713. And you can shoot them to us at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com. But I was tickled pink by this. And my wife asked, we have young Sheldon, and your podcast has mentioned young Wallander. NCIS Origins is coming out. But what's a show that you want to see the old version of? So I want to know, what is a show that you want us to flash forward maybe 10 years, 20 years, maybe way, way, way in the future to see what's happening. Like Rugrats even did this when they very recently they did an animated version of the kids in high school. So like I want to hear from you.
Give me old Troy and old Abed from Community.
Oh.
I want to see what that friendship looks like when they are in their golden years of retirement. I want to see those two doing kind of like a Grace and Frankie situation. I want to see Troy and Abed in their 70s, and it's a Golden Girls, Grace and Frankie type thing. I want to see their shenanigans in their old age.
All right, Max, you ready for it? Because I thought of this before you mentioned that, and I'm a little bit worried that ours are very close, but I want to return to a specific retirement community called Del Boca Vista, where we are seeing the cast of Seinfeld after their stint in prison, living out their days in South Florida, and still getting into the same shenanigans. Maybe that's just Curb Your Enthusiasm with a new location, but I want Seinfeld.
Can you just shout it like Jerry Stiller really quick for me?
Oh.
Just Del Boca Vista!
Del Boca Vista. Jerry.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But yeah, no, Jerry Seinfeld, I know you have all the money in the world. Let's greenlight this shit and let's get it going for sure. Also, I'd love to see, there is always in my mind, I've thought about Seinfeld, but on a cruise where like it's just them living on one of those cruise, like year-long cruises, and just seeing the shenanigans they get into. Yes, I want it. Give it to me. I need it so badly.
I think most ensemble sitcoms, just putting them on a boat for a year will work.
Yeah, there's way too much to happen. I cannot wait. Someone greenlight my idea, please. Well, Alex, thank you so much for that in-flight question. Once again, if you want to submit those, that is 213-290-1713. We take text or voicemail, and we'll play you on the show as well. Let's talk a little bit about the history of Young Sheldon. 7 seasons and 141 episodes. And that also includes the spinoff that Max previously mentioned, which is currently on the air. Max, would you be upset to find out that the spinoff is a multicam after they found so much success doing a single cam?
Oh, man. Actually, yeah, that really bummed me out.
Yeah, no, trust me. When I found that out, I was just like, what in the fuck is this with a laugh track? Are you kidding me? Like, we just had this very sentimental show.
Oh, that confuses me. I'm trying to figure out how you get from like Universe A to Universe B back to Universe A.
Oh, well, get ready to be more confused because we're going to talk about shrinkflation in viewership, because the first season of this show had a whopping 16.3 million viewers for the first episode.
There's a whole other world out there.
In 2018. And that brought it to number 6 in the rankings for that year. But what is even more wild, and why I mentioned shrinkflation, is the viewership dropped to 9.28 million average viewers for its final season. And that brought it to number 5 on the most watched shows. So, boy, if you want to see or hear why we're having harder and harder times of seeing shows like actually drive and be like water cooler moments, that's like my brain broke researching that statistic.
Fewer people are watching it, but it surges on the charts.
Yep, that's exactly it. Truly insane. The show was syndicated starting only 2 years after the initial season, which truly incredible. And you can also see the show in the UK, Israel, and via Warner TV Asia. You can also find this show. We watched it on Netflix, but if you are international, you'll actually be able to find it on Disney Plus. There are DVDs. There are Blu-rays for this show, so start collecting. Make sure you're piling those up. But let's talk about awards. 23 nominations and 4 wins, including 2 Nickelodeon Kid Choice Awards. And although Ian was nominated for a Teen Choice Award, there are no surfboards in Medford, Texas.
Bummer.
I'm really struggling to remember the last time we got a surfboard. And you know what? Maybe we need to find something. Maybe we need to cherry pick.
We're going to have to do a certain type of show next
episode.
Yeah,
we're going to have to cherry pick a surfboard-based show. But, Max, that is the history of Young Sheldon. Before our plane comes to a land, I have 2 questions for you. And the first is, based off of the pilot and the pilot alone, would you watch more Young Sheldon? And then the second question is, this is a spinoff that departs entirely from the original source material as far as the format, as far as the type of show that it is. Do you want to see more television or IPs taken in new directions to maybe get stuff greenlit that previously was having a hard time to do so?
I'm not going to go so far as to say, let's title this episode, We Watched Young Sheldon and it changed my entire perspective on TV, or I had some sort of existential crisis, or I had some sort of come to God moment over what I've thought about TV and am I a snob and am I the problem? But I am going to watch more Young Sheldon. I was so pleasantly surprised by what this is and what it was not. I think that if you are going to do a spinoff and tying into your second question here, this is how you do it. And this is also, to me, in some ways, how Frasier did it, where there is a character and that's it. Like, there is one little bit of DNA and you do not have to have an understanding of the world they came from to appreciate this show. I don't need to know anything about Bazinga to appreciate what I watched for 20 some odd minutes. And I think that this is a very, very strong coming of age comedy that fills a very easy, comforting, middle of the road lane that I was actually very enamored with.
And I'm sorry, Geoff, for making fun of you for watching Young Sheldon.
Look, man, it's Young Sheldon. He's so young. How young is he? Turns out it's 9. Answer. Case closed.
Oh my gosh. Well, for myself, what Max has made fun of me for in the past, and I will reveal to our audience in the present, is that yes, I have watched every single episode of Young Sheldon.
There you go, people.
Are you surprised? Frequent flyers, no. Now, as far as this is a wonderful show. This is a show that I think the pilot episode does a fantastic job of setting the scene of what you should be expecting to come. And I've also spoiled some of the amazing actors and actresses that you should expect in the future of this show to build out this universe. That being said, more shows like this that diverge from the original intent, 100%. I know we've complained in the past that, like, oh, I can't believe that Penguin was a different script that they had to throw in the DC universe. Yeah, sure, that slightly upsetting. But at the same time, the stories don't get cheapened just because they are thrown into a new context. And this show tells some fantastic stories, and I hope folks who maybe decide to listen to it enjoy those stories. But I hope more so, if you're looking at a piece of IP and saying, that, I like that, what if we did something with it? Take some chances, take some real shots in the dark, and try some new formats, because you might be the number 5 TV show in all of TV and be able to self-sustain in a universe where we're having harder and harder times not filling time slots with different sports and having a hard time finding original programming. Well, Max, that is our flight. But before we go, I want to make sure that folks can find us wherever we want to be found. If you want to be found, you can follow us and we'll maybe follow you. But Max, where can folks find you?
You can find me being both your dad and your coach, and on all things social media at Maxwell Sig.
And you can find me wearing gloves at the dinner table. But if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at Run Geoff Run. If you're looking for the TV Pilot's License, you can find us anywhere you follow podcasts. You can also see our smiling faces on YouTube and follow us on most social media platforms at TV Pilot's License. If you have a question about the show or for our next episode, you can email us at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com or give us a call at 213-290-1713. Make sure to watch out for some of the stuff that we have coming up. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and your fingers on the dial.
How young is he?